Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you. Behind closed doors or on the floor, what's in that bill will give you more. No red, no blue, just what's
All right, strap
true
yourselves
so
in,
you
folks.
can decide.
We're
what
going deep
they
into the
really
Congressional record this
feel.
time, February 3rd to the 6th, 2025. Buckle up.
Yeah, this is quite a period. It's a whirlwind of activity, got major bills, hitting the floor, heated debates, some pretty surprising votes. Honestly, there are enough political clashes in here to make your head spin.
Feels like we're watching a political thriller in real time. This DOGE thing really jumped out at me. Seems like it just appeared out of nowhere and is already shaking up the government.
Well, you see, President Trump appointed DOGE, gave it this huge mandate to streamline things / budgets and basically totally reorganize government agencies. A lot of people are wondering if it's even legal, is this just a power grab?
Especially with that news about DOGE having access to all these sensitive Treasury Department systems. What are the implications there? Is this about efficiency or is it something more, concerning?
Yeah, that access to financial data is definitely causing some raised eyebrows. I mean, some experts are really worried about privacy violations, maybe even abuse. And it brings up a bigger question about checks and balances. Is this much power in the hands of, a new entity, especially one that's appointed, not elected? Is it eroding the whole system?
Really good point. And it's not just DOGE. This leaked Project 2025 document, it's like a roadmap for a complete overhaul of the government.
It is. And what's really striking is how much distrust it shows, deep-seated distrust of, certain parts of the government. It calls for shrinking the federal government, dismantling agencies, things like USA, and basically wants more power for the executive branch. And some of these things, they're already happening.
So this isn't just some theory. It's actively shaping things right now. The consequences can be huge, especially when you look at the parts about social safety nets and the role of the president.
Oh, absolutely. The document, it suggests a massive shift in the balance of power, and the impact could be felt everywhere. I mean, think about healthcare, environmental regulations, all of it. We need to look at these specific changes, the arguments for and against them,
And on the topic of heated debates, what about USI aid? Its future is totally up in the air right now.
Right. Critics are arguing that shutting it down would be a huge blow to American influence all over the world.
Yeah.
Some are saying it would give China and Russia more power, that humanitarian efforts would suffer, and it could even hurt national security. It's a complicated issue, valid points on both sides.
But then there's the flip side. Some sources are pointing to examples of, mismanagement, misplaced priorities within USAID. They're saying it's not really doing what it's supposed to for U.S. interests.
Yeah, you've got examples in there like funding for programs that are controversial, to say the least. Allegations of aid not going where it's supposed to, things like that. These are serious accusations, definitely raise questions about how effective USAID is, about accountability, all that.
It's tough because foreign aid is important for diplomacy, for global development, right?
Right.
But if there are real concerns about how it's being run, those have to be addressed.
You got it. The challenge is to keep that balance, maintain American influence, but make sure that aid is used well, responsibly, effectively. That's where Congress comes in,
Oh.
Oversight is crucial. They need to really scrutinize these arguments, the proposed solutions, all of it.
And that brings us to another big name in the congressional record, Russell Vought. His nomination to be the head of the OMB has sparked a lot of outrage.
Yeah, Vought, he's a key figure in this Project 2025 thing, and his critics see him as someone who wants to, really drastically shrink the government. Democrats have been very vocal, pointing to things he's done in the past, questioning his, commitment to democratic processes.
It's pretty intense. They're saying he's willing to break the law, ignore Congress, all to push his agenda. And the OMB, it controls all that federal spending. So his influence could be massive.
I mean, imagine the impact across the board if he gets control of those funds. Healthcare, education, environmental protection, social programs. Everything could be reshaped by this vision of a smaller government.
And then there's President Trump's attempt to freeze $3 trillion in federal spending. That's a big power move. Definitely caused some chaos, a lot of uncertainty.
And a lot of pushback, too. People are saying it's illegal, a power grab that weakens the whole idea of separation of powers.
Okay.
The critics are warning about serious consequences, things like disruptions to vital services, institutions being weakened, all of that.
It's a high-stakes game, for sure. Executive and legislative branches going head-to-head, the fallout could be huge. Makes you really think about that balance of power, you know?
No doubt. This situation shows just how important checks and balances are, the whole idea of the rule of law. The question is, can Congress actually push back against this?
And while all this is going on, you've got the House dealing with the opioid crisis, the HALT Fentanyl Act. It aims to permanently classify fentanyl-related substances as Schedule I drugs. But it's causing a lot of debate.
It has bipartisan support, yeah, but there are concerns about what it could mean for research, and if it'll really address the root causes of the crisis. Some experts are worried about racial disparities and drug prosecutions, unintended consequences, things like that.
It feels like you're trying to solve a complex problem with a simple solution. What are some of the other approaches being discussed?
Well, some people are pushing for a more comprehensive approach, focusing on prevention, treatment, harm reduction strategies. They argue that just increasing penalties won't actually solve the underlying problems driving the epidemic.
So it's a case where we need to look beyond the partisan stuff and think about the long-term impact, right?
Exactly. The ALT Fentanyl Act, it has good intentions, but it could make things worse, like existing inequalities in the justice system.
Yeah.
And it might not actually deal with the complex factors driving the crisis. What we need is a more nuanced approach to really tackle all these different aspects.
So even with all these divisions and battles in the congressional record, there are some signs of, well, hope and cooperation too.
Yeah, there are. We see bipartisanship on some issues, and there's definitely a push for policymaking that's based on evidence, which is a good thing.
It's good to see, especially in the middle of all this political turmoil, shows that lawmakers can still find common ground sometimes, even when there are big differences on other things.
Right. It's encouraging to see, especially with all the political maneuvering that's going on. It is encouraging to see, those moments where they actually work together. But let's get back to DOGE for a second. There are some new things happening that are, well, they're kind of worrisome.
You know that thing about the young engineer from Elon Musk's team? The one who has access to the Treasury's payment systems? Yeah, that definitely got my attention. It's kind of hard to believe, someone with basically no government experience having access like that.
Right. And there are a lot of people questioning his qualifications, wondering if they even did a proper background check, all that. They're saying this level of access, it's usually for seasoned professionals inside the Treasury, not some, outsider. And they're worried about the risks.
I can see why. Giving someone connected to a powerful company like Musk's access to all that financial data, it just feels, I don't know, risky. What are people specifically concerned about?
Well, conflicts of interest, for one. Data breaches, that's a big one. And even the possibility of someone manipulating those systems for political reasons. It makes you wonder, about the lines between private companies and the government. Are there enough safeguards in place?
Yeah, it's a complicated situation, and it feels like we're in uncharted territory here. The potential for things to go wrong, it's definitely there. Congress needs to look into this.
Absolutely. We need transparency here, accountability. Congress has to do its job, make sure the right procedures are being followed, that the public's interest is protected, all of that.
In the meantime, that fight over Russell Vaught's nomination for the OMB, it's heating up. Democrats are really trying hard to block him.
They are. They're painting him as, a real threat to democracy, to responsible spending. They keep bringing up his involvement with Project 2025, his past actions. They're saying he's willing to just go around Congress, that his own ideology comes before the needs of the people.
They're especially worried about what he might do to things like, social safety nets, healthcare programs, environmental regulations. They see him as someone who wants to dismantle the government from the inside.
Yeah, that's their argument, basically. They're saying Vaught represents this radical shift in what the government's supposed to do, that he wants to shrink it no matter the cost to people, the environment. They're saying his nomination has to be rejected to keep him away from controlling all that money.
It's a battle between two very different ideas of what the country should be. And with Trump trying to freeze all that spending, the stakes are even higher.
This whole fight over Vought, it highlights a tension that's been running through the congressional record all week.
Hmm.
You have people who believe in a strong government that protects people, and then you have those who think the government is just like inherently bad, that it needs to be cut down drastically.
It's an argument that's been going on forever, but it feels more urgent now. What happens in this fight could change the country for a long time.
For sure. It's a battle over, like, the very idea of how America is governed. And it's happening right now in Congress. People
Yeah.
need to pay attention, understand what these arguments are, what the consequences could be.
Speaking of important decisions, let's talk about the HALT Fentanyl Act again. It's meant to address a real crisis, but people are getting more and more worried about what else it could do.
Yeah, some people are saying that the bill, while it has good intentions, it's just too simple. Like it could actually do more harm than good. They're worried about more people ending up in prison, especially in minority communities, and all without really dealing with what's causing the opioid problem in the first place.
It's like they're trying to fix a complicated problem with a one-size-fits-all solution,
Yeah.
right? What are some of the other ideas people are talking about?
Well, some are saying we need a more holistic approach, one that actually uses evidence. Focus on public health, harm reduction, dealing with the social and economic problems that are driving addiction. They're saying we should invest in treatment, prevention, programs in communities, all that, instead of just relying on police and prisons.
So sometimes the easiest answer isn't the right one. You have to look at the bigger picture, think about the consequences before you make a decision that could affect everyone.
Exactly. The HLT Fentanyl Act, it means well, but it could make things worse for people who are already facing inequality in the justice system. And it might not even really solve the opioid problem. It's a complex issue, needs a more, thoughtful solution.
It seems like there's a lot of division, a lot of fighting going on in this congressional record, but there are also signs of, some positive things happening too.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen some bipartisanship, and there's definitely more of a focus on using evidence to make policy, which is good.
It feels like, I don't know, like we're at this point where things could go either way.
Right.
You have people pushing for huge changes and others who want to like hold on to what we have. It's a lot to keep up with, especially if you're not, following politics every day.
Yeah, that's true. It really shows how important it is to stay informed, to be engaged. The decisions being made right now, they could completely change the country. People need to understand what's at stake, make their voices heard.
So how can people even stay informed? There's just so much information out there, and it feels like it's always a fight between, different sides trying to control the story. What can people actually do?
One thing is to, branch out with your news sources. Don't just stick to one or two. Try to get different perspectives from inside the U.S., from other countries, too. It helps you get a better understanding of what's really going on.
That makes sense. It's easy to get stuck in, an echo chamber where you only hear what you already agree with.
Right. And another thing is to be aware of your own biases. We all have them, and they can affect how we see things. Try to find information that challenges your beliefs, even if it makes you uncomfortable. It's how you grow, how you learn to think critically.
Good point. It's easy to just ignore information that you don't like, but that doesn't help anyone.
Nope. And fact-checking, that's huge. Don't just believe everything you see or hear. Take the time to check it. Use reliable sources. There are websites, organizations, all kinds of resources to help you do that.
Especially these days, the internet and everything. Misinformation spreads so fast. You really have to be careful, make sure your sources are trustworthy.
And don't forget about local news. Supporting local journalism is so important. It's how we hold our local officials accountable, how we know what's happening in our communities. Local issues affect us directly, and those local reporters are the ones who are covering them.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Local news is important, and it's easy to forget about it sometimes.
For sure.
Okay, so we're staying informed, but what about actually doing something? How can people participate, make a difference?
It's not as hard as you think.
Yeah.
Contact your representatives, go to town halls, let them know what you think. That's what democracy's about, right? We all have to participate.
So it's not just about knowing what's going on, it's about using that knowledge
Yeah.
to, actually shape things.
Exactly. And collective action, that's powerful too. Find organizations that share your values, join them, support them. It's a way to make your voice louder, to really have an impact.
There's strength in numbers, right?
Yeah.
Working together can achieve a lot more than just working alone.
Definitely. Whether it's pushing for policy changes, protesting, or just raising awareness, there are so many ways to get involved. Even small actions can make a difference.
So we've talked about a lot in this deep dive, right? DOGE, Project 2025, the fight over USA Day, Russell Vought, all of it. It really seems like things are changing in American politics, like a big turning point.
Yeah, we've seen how all these different things are connected, how they're part of this bigger struggle over where the country is headed. Some people want to concentrate power, while others want a system that's more democratic, where everyone has a say.
And these fights have real consequences, right? Like funding freezes affecting essential services, the HALT Fentanyl Act, and what it could mean for the justice system, things like that.
Absolutely. But even with all that's going on, there are some positive things happening too. Like the bipartisan efforts, even if they're small, they show that people can still work together. And all the people out there who are, actively trying to make a difference, that gives me hope. It shows that we all have a role to play in shaping our democracy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want people to remember?
Stay informed, stay engaged, and don't lose hope. The challenges are real, but we can overcome them. If we work together, if we hold our leaders accountable, we can create a better future for ourselves and for everyone who comes after us.
Well said. And this is just the beginning. There's always more to learn, more to explore, more to do. Keep thinking critically, keep asking questions.
And don't forget that your voice matters. Speak up, fight for what you believe in, and never give up hope. We can make a difference together.